Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this easy wire work lady ring. And this is what it looks like. So it's just a fun little ring. It has a bit of a shape like a lady with hair and a dress. So if you want to learn how to make that, then stay tuned. And here are the things that you're going to need. In my case, I'm using a 1mm wire. And you don't have to use this specific gauge, you can maybe use a thicker gauge or even a little bit smaller. But you can't go too small because it is a ring and it needs to be substantial enough. But you can change up the gauge if you want to. And the length of this is roughly about 25 centimeters. You can, if you're a little bit unsure, maybe make it a bit longer. Also obviously depends what size you're making the ring, but roughly about 25 centimeters should be enough. And then you'll need a ring mandrel to determine obviously the size and help with the shape. You can also use something else if you don't have a ring mandrel, like a marker pen or anything else that has the right size that you need it to be. And then you'll need a selection of your pliers. So get these things together and then let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is get your ring mandrel out, or if you're using something else then get that out. And then obviously determine what size you want your ring to be. And then you get your piece of wire, which I've already cut off. And then you want to place your wire below your ring mandrel. And you want to make sure that your wire is probably about the center of your wire is below. It's just to get it even. And then obviously if you have a ring mandrel, determine what size you need it to be. And then start bending your ring around the ring mandrel. Bend your wire around. Try and make sure the ends on both sides that they're pretty equal, because those are the ones we're going to use at the end to make the lady shape. So I've now wrapped my wire around once, and then I'm coming pretty much crossing over each other, and then you can twist this around, or you can twist your mandrel around, but then you need to just bring your wires around to the other side again, to the point where again they meet, like so. So if you look on the back side, which is going to basically be the part that'll be going around your finger, you have your wire wrapping around twice, and then ending both ends on this side. And try and get this roughly as even as you can. So if you're happy with that, it's got the size and the shape that you want, then we need to start making the shape. So to do this, now I want to take it off the ring mandrel. You can always come back to that to just help resize it or reshape it at the end if you need to. So you now have this. The base of your ring is ready, and then what I like to do is kind of keep my finger inside the ring just to try and help the shape stay where I want it to be while I'm working with it. But like I said, otherwise you can just put it back on the mandrel at the end just to help reshape it if it needs to. So the first thing I want to do is work on the head part. So you want to make sure that these two wires, the ends, both cross so they end roughly the same place, because we want obviously to make sure that they're above each other. So the first thing I do is get my round nose pliers and then put them in where your wires basically cross and meet. And this is obviously going to be on the top, and the size that you want, it's the first loop here is actually going to be the head. So the size that you want that to be is determined by where you put it on your round nose pliers. So this I kind of want to be the biggest loop. So I want to make sure that I bring it pretty far down my round nose pliers. And then you have a position like this. And then I want to push the end of my wire around my round nose plier. and make sure you do it on the upper part. So if you see from this side, it's bending outwards from the ring. And then we can put the round nose pliers back in, maybe from the other angle if that works out better. You want to make sure that this comes above, the end comes above, to come back around over to the other side. And you can always adjust it a little bit if you need to. So you can roll your loop with your round nose pliers. Roughly like so. And then you want to make sure that this end is in the position that it needs to be to start making the hair. So roughly like this. So this is where you have the base of your ring. You've made one loop on one side, that's going to be the head, and then you just need to finish off here. That's going to be the hair, and then we're moving on to the bottom afterwards. But then for this, you want to then decide where you want your hair to be, and you also want to make loops here, but obviously these loops are going to be smaller. So I'm going to place my round nose pliers. I like to do it roughly kind of in the middle or the side of the head. So I'll place my round nose pliers in, and obviously this is going to be a smaller loop, so you want to go further up towards the tip of your round nose pliers. Again, you can decide how big you want your loops to be. And then you want to start twisting it around the other way. But as you're doing that, you see the natural way it comes is above the ring like before. We actually want to make sure it comes below. So we need to just manipulate the wire behind the ring while we're then twisting it around. And then you can manipulate it a bit. You can always get some flat nose pliers out, just to make sure the loop is in the right place. And you can go in from the other side to hold it if that's a better angle, just to pull up the wire so it is exactly where you want it to be. So roughly something like this. So now we need to move across the other side of the head to then finish off this half. And as you're working with it, if you find that it's a little bit not quite flat and flush to where the ring would be, don't worry too much about that. The first thing is to get it in shape, and you can always just manipulate the wire afterwards. So now we have the head in the middle, and then we started off the hair on one side. We now want to go back over and around the head to then make the other loop on the other side. So you just want to manipulate your wire to go around the big loop that you did. Try and make sure it's as nice of a curve as you can get it. Roughly something like this. So now this curves around the top of the head, and then you want to get your round nose pliers out again, and then, because now the end is quite short, because we're coming to obviously the end of it, you can decide how big obviously you want that loop on the other side to be. If you want it to be about the same size, you can always go back in and just measure this to make sure where on your pliers you use that to make the loop. So on this end, if you have a long end left, if you use more, you can just go back in and just form your wire around your pliers. But when you have a short end, that can be a little bit difficult to use your fingers for that, because it can hurt a little bit. So what you can do instead is go straight towards the end of the wire, place your pliers right at the end of your wire, and then start rolling them in instead. So you basically make a loop by rolling it in. And then to get the end to meet the wire, and just keep tweaking it until you're happy. Like so. So roughly looks something like this. So that's basically the head and the hair finished, so the top part. And now we need to move on to do the bottom part. Now for this, the first step, you then want to just get your flat nose pliers out, because the first thing you want to do is create just a bend in the wire straight below the head and make a bit of an angle on there. So you get your flat nose pliers, put them in, so when you make your bend it'll come straight below the head, and just bend it like so, a bit of an angle. So you now have an angle where it comes out a little bit like this. So it's not a total 45-degree angle or 90-degree angle or anything, but just the nice angle that you want it to be. And then we need to move down the wire a bit, still using your flat nose pliers. Now this is just, you decide how far down you want to go. That's what's going to determine how large, how big the bottom part is going to be, well, the dress kind of. So I'm going to move down around there and then bend my wire, whoops, and bend my wire back to get a nice angle. You can always tweak it a bit as you go until you're happy. Roughly like so. And then we need to come on the other side. So basically we're making a triangle. So obviously you want to come a bit further out on the other side than the beginning. Put your flat nose pliers in, bend it back to go back up towards the very first bend you did. So you've basically created a triangle. And again, you can always just tweak it and adjust it until it is exactly how you want it to be. Like so. And now all that's left is to finish off that dress. So again, we now have an end, a short end left on this wire. And if you're quite happy with the length of that you're going to make the loop, then just leave it at that. You can always cut it a little bit if you need to. So I now get my round nose pliers out, go towards the very end of your wire, just like we did up by the hair, and then we want to start rolling your wire to make a loop. And bring it all the way down, right at the top of your triangle. So it's just a way to just add a little bit of detail, but it's also a way to then finish off your wire. And you can always use your flat nose pliers just to go and make sure everything's nice and flat, because it's one thing you want to make sure when you do wire work, any type of wire work, that your ends are always finished off so they're not going to scratch or catch on anything. Like so. And that is basically your ring done. And you can obviously then, if you need to, just adjust to press things down so they lay level with how you'll be wearing it as the ring. Like so. And again, if you need to, get your mandrel back out and just make sure that it's the right size still, and that it's stayed the right shape as well. So that's how you make this ring. Nice and quick and easy. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much for watching.